Hello friends, in this video I will try to give you a little information about how to write an advantages disadvantages essay. So again, here I wrote another model advantage and disadvantage essay, so I will be talking about the essay on this piece of writing. So our topic was discuss the advantages and disadvantages of electronic books. Okay, sometimes the prompt can be given like this, or sometimes the prompt could be what are the pros and cons of electronic books. It can also be like this, so be careful, but generally in our model essays we used this prompt. Discuss the advantages and disadvantages of electronic books, or it could be like what are the pros and cons of electronic books. Okay, so in an advantage and disadvantage essay we have to talk about both advantages and disadvantages. So before writing your essay you have to think about the advantages and disadvantages in advance. These are my ideas, by the way, so I thought about it, and then I found two advantages and two disadvantages for this topic. I said nature friendliness and having more capacity are the advantages, and the idea of not feeling the paper and the health problems are the disadvantages. So these are my ideas. So how do we write an advantage-disadvantage essay? Like other essays, it consists of at least 4 paragraphs. Remember, in opinion essay, we also wrote at least 4 paragraphs. It could be more than that actually, but we want at least 4 paragraphs. The introduction, the advantage paragraph. Actually, let's say advantages paragraph. And this advantages paragraph. Some of my students asked whether they can first talk about advantages and then disadvantages, but generally the sequence is like this: first advantages and then disadvantages. So I think it would be better to follow this pattern, so just keep that in mind. And then we have a conclusion. So maybe you recognize that I wrote 2 different paragraphs here for conclusion, but I will talk about it when we come to the conclusion paragraph, okay? So I wrote the advantages and disadvantages. So in our institution we told our students that at least 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages would be okay, but you can write more than that, okay? I mean, 2 is the optimum number. You can write more than 2. You can write advantages and disadvantages, let's say up to number 4, but you can't write only 1 advantage or only 1 disadvantage. Keep that in mind. So how do we write the introduction? The introduction of an advantage and disadvantage essay does not give your opinion, does not give your views. It's just the general, it's kind of a general background of the topic. So you give kind of information about the topic, So you don't state any opinion or you don't state any view. you don't take any stance against the topic. So this was my introduction. By the way, you can start writing your introduction with a question or with a famous quotation. It's up to you. So I started with a question. I asked, have you ever walked into a bookstore or library and smelled the beauty of the books? Most people, especially students, love spending time in libraries and bookstores because it is a quiet place to study and read books. However, there are also people who want to see their books electronically, and they buy devices to store their books electronically, such as Amazon Kindle. Actually, I'm not sure how to say this word. It's not Kindle, as far as I know. Amazon Kindle. So this was my introduction. I gave a general idea about the topic. I'm narrating this to Turkish students, but this is also for other international students, so I'm not translating this paragraph into Turkish by Turkish students. So we talked generally about the topic. And then advantages. How can you start the advantages paragraph? There are some advantages of electronic books is acceptable. And you can say the first and most important advantage is that they are nature friendly. And after giving your advantage, you have to justify your advantage. Justification means actually giving examples, explaining your advantage. And I explained it here, right here, as you see. Trees are cut down to produce paperback books, but an electronic book does not need paper. I think one sentence is enough for justification. The second advantage, moreover, you can write moreover, you can write much is more, you can write in addition, you can write the second advantage is that, you can write the last advantage is that, because for me, it has two advantages. You can write three advantages. Moreover, you can store as many books as you want in your device. So this is the second advantage, which is, having more capacity. Namely, you can have more than one book in your hand when you want to read. So, for example, you're traveling by bus, you have your Kindle in your hand. So you started reading a book, you didn't like it, and then you can open another book because you have a Kindle and it has a capacity and you can store more than one book. It's actually up to your device's storage capacity. On the other hand, is a perfect connector to start the disadvantage paragraph. On the other hand, there are also some disadvantages. The first disadvantage is that you can't feel the paper in your hand. You can't feel the paper in your hands. You should feel the paper and touch it to enjoy reading. This is my justification. For you, it could be another thing. Another disadvantage is that using ebooks might cause health problems. So here you see the health problems was the second disadvantage. And I justified it by giving this claim. It's claimed that portable devices emit radiation. Emit here means give. So the longer you hold an electronic book in your hand, the more radiation you might be exposed to. This was my justification for the disadvantage of an electronic book. So I talked about first advantages and then disadvantages, two advantages, two disadvantages. What about the conclusion? I think conclusion is the most important part in an advantage and disadvantage paragraph, because in the conclusion you can either give your opinion. I mean, giving your opinion means which part do you support? Do you support the advantage part or do you support the disadvantage part? So this means giving your opinion, or you can give a balanced consideration. So, sir, how can we start the conclusion paragraph if we want to give our opinions? In conclusion, although there are some advantages, I believe, in my opinion, the disadvantages outweigh the advantages. You can write, like, I think the advantages outweigh the disadvantages if you are for the advantages. If you think the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. So here my idea was that there are more disadvantages than advantages of having an electronic book. And then again, I justified it. Like, reading books means feeling the paper and smelling it, and it is not as unhealthy as an electronic device. Maybe we can write paperback instead of it. So, and a paperback is not as unhealthy as an electronic device. So I gave my opinion. You know, I took my stance actually. So I'm standing. So I'm looking at the situation from a point of view, okay? Because I supported that there are more disadvantages to having an electronic book. Or you can write a kind of balanced conclusion, so we call it a balanced consideration. Again, you start with in conclusion. So this sentence actually, I think, signals balanced consideration better than other sentences. You say there are both advantages and disadvantages for electronic books. When you say this, so it looks like you have a balanced opinion. So you don't support advantages side, and you don't support the disadvantages side either. And I say, after all, it is the reader who will decide which way to choose. So electronic or paperback, reading books is an enjoyable habit. So this was a balanced consideration. So folks, that's all from me. I hope you will enjoy this video about how to write an advantage and disadvantage essay. So I hope we will be together in future videos. Enjoy your weekend.